The stars burned quietly above the broken moon, its shattered pieces floating in the endless void like silent witnesses to an ancient war. Around it, hundreds of ships gathered, their metallic hulls glowing with the cold light of distant suns. They belonged to the Allied Galactic Fleet, a coalition of many alien species united by one belief: that humanity was finished. For years they had hunted and cornered every human ship they could find. They believed Earth was gone, destroyed in the final siege. To them, the war was over. But they were wrong. Admiral Jathar, commander of the Velcrian Armada, stood on his bridge, his many eyes fixed on the holographic map before him. He hissed softly, his voice echoing in the metallic air. Soon, the last human colonies will fall, and the galaxy will finally know peace. His officers nodded, their tentacles and claws moving over the glowing control panels. But peace was not coming. Suddenly, an alarm screamed through the command deck. "Admiral!" shouted a young officer, his voice trembling. "A massive energy signature detected on the edge of Sector 9! Jathar turned sharply. "Which fleet?" The officer's mandibles clicked nervously. "No fleet, sir. It's a single ship." The entire bridge went silent. "A single ship? No signal? No ID code?" Impossible. The holographic map flickered, showing a bright point of light appearing out of nowhere. Then the scanners began to fail, unable to measure the power output. "Is it a weapon test?" one officer asked. "No," said another in disbelief. "It's entering normal space. Right now." Across the Allied fleet, hundreds of alien captains received the same report. Ships turned their sensors toward the source. The void itself seemed to tremble. From a blinding flash of blue light, a massive silhouette emerged. Black, angular, and ancient in design, it bore human markings, the letters barely visible but clear enough to make every officer freeze in disbelief. DS Valiant, the bridge of the alien flagship filled with horrified whispers. "That ship was destroyed 20 years ago," someone said. "No!" another voice trembled. "It can't be! It's impossible!" Yet the truth hung before them, huge and undeniable. A human warship had entered the battlefield. Inside the Valiant, the atmosphere was calm. Captain Elara Voss stood at the center of her command deck, her eyes sharp, her voice steady. "All systems green," reported her tactical officer Elara. Nodded, her face lit by the blue glow of holographic screens. Her AI companion, Argo, appeared beside her as a shimmering figure of light. "Multiple fleets detected, Captain," it said in its calm, mechanical tone. "They appear to be in disarray." Elara smirked slightly. "Good. Let them panic." She looked out the viewport, watching the endless stars and the swarm of alien ships beyond. It had been 20 years since humanity had been betrayed, 20 years since the Valiant vanished into a dying star system. Everyone believed the ship was gone, lost forever. But Elara and her crew had survived. They rebuilt their warship in the shadows of dead worlds. They watched the galaxy grow arrogant. Now they had returned. "Captain," said Argo, "we are being hailed by the Allied command." Elara tilted her head slightly. "Ignore it." "Shall I respond with silence?" the AI asked. She smiled coldly. "No, respond with power." At her command, the Valiant's main reactor began to hum. The decks vibrated as energy surged through the ship's veins. Blue light danced across the hull as ancient human technology awoke from its long sleep. The ship's weapon systems came online. Rail cannons, plasma lances, and gravitational warheads, all fully charged. Outside, the alien fleets began to scatter in confusion. Admiral Jathar screamed into his comms, "Form ranks! Attack formation Delta! Destroy that ship before it charges!" But even as he gave the order, his tactical screens flickered again. The human vessel was already moving. It glided forward like a silent predator, its engines burning bright white. Then it fired. The first shot tore through space with the force of a collapsing star. An entire Valkyrian cruiser exploded instantly, its wreckage scattering like sparks in the dark. The second shot followed, precise, merciless. Within seconds, the once mighty Allied fleet was thrown into chaos. No one had ever seen a ship move or strike like this. It wasn't just powerful, it was angry. On the Valiant's bridge, Ilara stood calm as the storm unfolded. Her voice was steady, cold as ice. "Let them remember," she said. "Humanity doesn't vanish quietly." Her crew nodded silently, veterans of a lost war, bound by vengeance and pride. Across the galaxy, distress signals began to flood the network. Reports spread. Faster than light, a human warship has returned. The TDS Valiant lives. Humanity still fights. For the first time in decades, the galaxy trembled, and far away, on forgotten human worlds, survivors looked up at the stars and whispered a single word, finally. The war was not over. It had just begun. Inside the Valiant, silence ruled, broken only by the rhythmic hum of ancient machinery breathing back to life. Blue lights pulsed along the walls, casting long shadows across the faces of the crew. Each of them carried old scars, reminders of a war that had never truly ended, and at the center of it all stood Captain Ilara Voss. Calm, unreadable, her uniform black as the void. She stared through the wide viewport, her reflection merging with the battlefield beyond. Thousands of enemy ships shimmered in the darkness, weapons locked and ready. But Ilara didn't flinch. She had seen worse. She had lived through betrayal, starvation, and exile. Now she was back, not as a soldier of a fallen nation, but as the symbol of humanity's wrath. "Status report," she said quietly, her voice cutting through the still air. "Shields at full power," replied Commander Hayes. "Railguns charged, graviton weapons stable." Argo, the ship's AI, materialized beside her in the form of a floating blue figure, calm and glowing. "Enemy communications show panic, Captain," Argo said. "They believe we are a ghost." Ilara's lips curved slightly. "Then let's haunt them properly." Her crew exchanged nervous smiles. They had followed her through the impossible. From the ruins of Sol to the black edge of the galaxy, they had rebuilt this ship from scavenged bones of fallen fleets. They had waited 2 decades for this moment. Now it was time to show the galaxy that humans did not die quietly. "Captain," Hayes said suddenly. "Incoming transmission." "It's the Valkyrian flagship." Argo's image shimmered, translating the alien voice. "This is Admiral Jathar of the Galactic Alliance. Identify yourself, human vessel, or be annihilated." Ilara chuckled, a cold sound that echoed in the silent bridge. "Play it back to him," she said and leaned forward. "This is Captain Ilara Voss of the Terran defense ship Valiant," her voice sharp as steel. "You had your chance to destroy us. You failed." Silence followed. Then Argo spoke. "He terminated the link." "Of course he did," Ilara murmured. "Fear makes cowards loud and brave men quiet." Outside, the enemy fleets began to move. Dozens of alien dreadnoughts advanced, their hulls glowing with crimson energy. Missile trails streaked across the void. For a moment, it looked like the stars themselves were at war. "Brace for impact," Hayes shouted. The ship rocked violently as enemy fire slammed into their shields. Waves of heat and pressure rolling across the decks. But the Valiant held firm, its shield matrix bending light like liquid glass. Argo's calm voice spoke through the chaos. "Damage minimal, Captain. Returning fire sequence ready." Ilara's eyes glowed faintly under the blue lights. "Then return it." The Valiant's railguns spun up with a low metallic growl. Energy readings spiked across every sensor in the sector. Then silence. In that single heartbeat, even the enemy seemed to hold their breath. And then, boom, the human warship unleashed its fury. The main rail cannon fired first, a shot so bright it carved a line of light across the void. It pierced an enemy flagship straight through its core, vaporizing half the crew before anyone could scream. Another blast followed, then another. Within seconds, 5 alien vessels were gone, reduced to glowing dust. The shockwave rippled through nearby ships, sending them spinning out of formation. In the darkness of the command deck, Ilara stood perfectly. Still, her eyes fixed on the screen. Her heart did not race, her hands did not shake. She had waited 20 years for this. This was not vengeance. It was justice. "Captain," Argo said softly, "Allied fleets are scattering. Command channels are in chaos." Ilara's expression didn't change. "They thought humanity would vanish into history," she whispered. "They thought wrong." Her voice lowered as she looked at her crew. "Do not forget what they did to Earth," she said. "Do not forget the children who never saw the sun again. The cities that burned, the oceans that turned red." Her words filled the bridge with heavy silence. Every officer standing straighter, their eyes burning with the same fury. "From this moment," she continued, "we fight not for survival, but for remembrance." Argo's voice broke the silence again. "Captain, enemy reinforcements detected. Multiple fleets entering orbit." Ilara smiled faintly. "Let them come." She turned toward the great black window where the stars burned like ghosts. "Let the galaxy see," she whispered, "what one human ship can do." Then she gave the final order, "Prepare the Valiant for total engagement." As the engines roared to life, a deep vibration shook the decks. Every light glowed brighter, every weapon charged with terrifying energy. In the distance, the alien fleets regrouped, forming new lines, thinking they still had a chance. But in that moment, under the flickering blue light of her warship, Captain Ilara Voss whispered one final promise. "Humanity has returned." And with a single flash of light, the Valiant surged forward into the heart of the battle. The war for the galaxy had truly begun. The battlefield still burned. Fragments of shattered ships drifted across the black sea of stars like dying embers. Inside the Valiant, the bridge was silent except for the distant hum of cooling weapons. Smoke coiled through the air, carrying the metallic scent of victory and memory. Captain Ilara Voss stood alone near the viewport. Her reflection caught. In the glass, the explosions outside painted her face in blue and red flashes, but her eyes weren't on the present. They were looking back to the day humanity fell. "Argo," she said quietly, "pull up the old recordings." The AI's voice was soft. "Are you certain, Captain?" "Yes," she whispered. "They need to remember what happened." The lights dimmed, and before the crew, holographic images flickered to life. Scenes of Earth, oceans shimmering, cities glowing, ships leaving the atmosphere. Then came the betrayal. It had begun as an alliance of peace. The Galactic Council had promised equality, protection, and unity. Humanity, still young among the stars, believed them. They shared their technology, their science, their trust. But behind the smiling faces and friendly treaties, envy grew. Humans learned too fast, built too strong, adapted too easily, and in the shadows the Council decided humanity was a threat. One by one, human colonies began to vanish, trade routes cut, signals lost, and when Earth called for help, none came. Instead, Allied fleets arrived, not to aid, but to annihilate. The hologram showed the skies over Earth turning red with plasma fire. Cities evaporated, continents cracked, millions screamed as orbital bombardments rained from above. The betrayal was complete. The proud blue planet that once sang with life fell silent. On the bridge, not a single word was spoken. Every officer watched in silence, their faces pale under the flickering light. Even Argo's digital form dimmed, as if mourning. "End recording," Ilara said softly, her voice trembling for the first time. She turned toward her crew, her eyes like fire under tears she refused to shed. "They erased our history," she said. "They burned our home, our children, our future." Her voice hardened. "But they couldn't kill our spirit." A young ensign spoke, his voice shaking. "Captain, how did Valiant survive?" Ilara closed her eyes for a moment, remembering. When she spoke, her tone was low, steady, almost like a ghost telling her own legend. "When Earth fell, the Valiant was stationed beyond Mars," she began. "We received the distress calls, but by the time we reached orbit, it was already too late." She paused, gripping the rail before her. "We tried to fight back, but the Allied fleet surrounded us. Millions against one." A faint, bitter smile touched her lips. "They thought they had destroyed us." The hologram shifted again, showing the Valiant surrounded by flames, diving into the storm of enemy fire. At the last second, the ship disappeared into a blinding wave of light. "Hyperdrive malfunction," Argo narrated. "Coordinates unknown." Ilara nodded. "We didn't die that day. We fell through a broken wormhole." The image changed. The ship emerging. In the darkness of a dead system, orbiting a star that had long burned out. They were alone. No allies, no home, no signal. Just a wounded ship and a handful of survivors. "We should have died," Ilara said. "But humanity doesn't end that easily." They scavenged. They repaired. They built new engines from wreckage and fused alien tech with human design. In 20 years of exile, they evolved. The Valiant became something else. Stronger, faster, unpredictable. A fusion of human will and machine precision. Argo spoke softly. "We became something the galaxy had never seen before." Ilara's voice was quiet, but filled with thunder. "They wanted extinction. Instead, they created a weapon. Outside, the last fragments of enemy ships floated in the dark, and among them, faint radio signals began to echo. Distress calls, fear, disbelief. One alien broadcast repeated again and again in panic. "Human warship, impossible. Human warship alive." Ilara turned toward her communications officer. "Transmit this message to all channels," she ordered. Her crew looked at her, waiting. She spoke slowly, each word like a blade. "This is Captain Ilara Voss of the Terran defense ship Valiant. Humanity is not extinct. Humanity remembers. Humanity returns." The signals spread across systems like wildfire. Every planet, every station, every fleet heard it. The ghosts of humanity had just spoken to the living on distant worlds. Alien leaders stared at their screens in horror. Old alliances began to crack. In secret corners of the galaxy, hidden human survivors looked to the sky. And for the first time in decades, they smiled. Ilara watched the stars beyond the glass, her voice almost a whisper. "They thought they erased us," she said, "but they only wrote the beginning of our revenge." The Valiant drifted forward, its engines glowing like the heartbeat of a sleeping god, and as the wreckage of the enemy fleets burned in the distance, one truth became clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had returned, and the stars themselves trembled. The void was silent again, but silence in war was never peace. It was the breath before the scream, the stillness before the storm, and at the center of that silence drifted the TDS Valiant. Its black hull glowed faintly, like a sleeping beast about to wake. Across the sector, the shattered remains of the Allied fleet struggled to regroup. Thousands of alien ships floated in panic, broken lines and confused commands spreading like wildfire. The Valiant had appeared, destroyed their vanguard, and then vanished into the darkness. Now the galaxy's most powerful armada searched the stars. For one human ship on the alien flagship, Admiral Jathar's claws dug into the command. "Rail!" His voice shook the air. "Find it! Track that cursed ship!" A trembling officer replied, "We lost its signature, sir. It disappeared. No warp trail, no signal." Jathar's mandibles clicked in fury. "Nothing disappears! Find them!" But the Valiant wasn't hiding. It was waiting. In the shadow of a fractured moon, cloaked in its own distortion field, Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the tactical display. Her expression was calm, too. Calm around her. The crew moved in perfect silence. Each heartbeat was steady. Each motion measured. They had done this before. They were hunters once again. "Argo," Alara said, her tone soft but sharp. "Status." "Cloaking stable, Captain," the AI replied. "All weapons charged. Enemy fleets within range in 1 minute." Alara nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on the enemy formation. "They outnumber us 1,000 to 1, said Commander Hayes quietly. Alara smirked. "Then we have enough targets?" The crew shared a faint smile. The old fear of being outnumbered no longer existed here. They were beyond fear now. They were human. Argo's voice echoed. "Enemy fleet detected in firing range." Ilara's eyes glowed faintly under the dim blue lights. "Then it's time," she whispered. "Bring them fire." The Valiant's cloaking field shimmered like heat on metal. And then it vanished. The ship emerged from the void, colossal and silent, its weapons alive with light. The alien sensors screamed too late. By the time they saw the Valiant, it had already locked its targets. "Fire," Alara ordered. The space around the ship turned into a storm of destruction. Rail cannons thundered, firing projectiles at near-light speed. Plasma lances cut through enemy cruisers like ribbons of fire. The Valiant moved through the battlefield like a blade through glass. Its precision was terrifying, its silence even worse. The first wave of alien ships didn't even have time to fire back. Their shields shattered, their cores ignited, their fleets disintegrated into clouds of molten fragments. Every explosion painted the black sky in burning orange and blue. Every second, another enemy vessel was erased. On the alien flagship, chaos erupted. "Impossible!" Jathar screamed. "That's not a human ship. That's a god of war!" But no one answered him. His officers were already abandoning their posts, trying to escape. The once proud admiral felt something cold in his chest. Fear, real fear. For the first time in his long military life, he knew what it meant to face humanity in full. Meanwhile, aboard the Valiant, the bridge shook with controlled fury. "Multiple kills confirmed," Hayes reported. 72 enemy ships. "Destroyed," Argo added calmly. "Predicting a full retreat within 3 minutes?" Ilara's gaze didn't move from the viewport. 3 minutes is generous," she said. "Let's make it 1. She turned to Argo. "Activate the Tempest protocol." The AI hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Captain, that weapon has not been tested since Reconstruction." Ilara's eyes hardened. "Neither have we." Argo's holographic eyes glowed bright. "Protocol confirmed." Deep within the Valiant, mechanical cores began to spin. Energy built up inside the gravitational chamber, a weapon created during exile, forged from human and alien technology, the Tempest. It could manipulate gravity. Itself, folding space like paper, crushing entire fleets into dust. As power surged, the ship groaned like a beast waking from an ancient sleep. Lights flickered, metal screamed, and then, all at once, silence. "Tempest ready," Argo said. Alara raised her hand slowly, her voice calm. "Release it." In an instant, the void imploded. The stars bent, light twisted, and the space. Between ships collapsed inward. Dozens of alien vessels were torn apart, pulled into a single, crushing singularity. No fire, no explosion, only silence. When the distortion faded, nothing remained. The entire sector went dark, Every sensor, every signal, gone. Only one ship remained moving, steady and unbroken. The Valiant, across the galaxy. The shockwave of the event spread through communication channels. Every corner of the Alliance heard the same terrifying message. The human warship has unleashed a forbidden weapon. Entire fleets destroyed in seconds. Humanity has returned. On the Valiant's bridge, Argo's voice was quiet again. Tempest field stable, weapon cooldown engaged. Alara looked at the devastation before her. An entire army gone, she whispered softly. They thought they could erase us. Her hand rested on the console. But humans don't erase, we remember. Commander Hayes turned to her, his voice low. Captain? What now? Ilara's expression was unreadable. We send a message, she said, to every system that turned its guns on Earth. She looked at Argo. Prepare transmission. Argo's light pulsed. Ready? Alara spoke slowly, her voice carried. By every frequency, every wave of sound across the galaxy. This is not vengeance, she said. This is justice. You tried to bury humanity, but we are the fire beneath your ashes. We are awake. Then the transmission ended, and across the stars, billions of beings listened in silence. Every fleet commander, every leader, every survivor, all staring into the black sky, knowing one truth. The age of human fear was over. The age of human power had begun. The Valiant turned slowly, its engines glowing brighter than any sun. And as it vanished into hyperspace once more, it left behind only ruins. And a legend that would echo forever across the stars. The legend of the human warship that could not die. The echoes of the Valiant's strike spread like thunder across the galaxy. Entire communication networks jammed under the weight of fear. The same message repeated everywhere. Human warship sighted. Entire fleet destroyed. Humanity still lives. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Alliance trembled on the central world of Virelon. Inside the shining towers of the Council Citadel, chaos had replaced order. Alien diplomats shouted across the chamber, claws and tendrils waving, their translator devices crackling under the noise. "They have returned!" screamed a Velcrian envoy, his scales pulsing red with panic. A slender Thalorian snapped back. "You said they were extinct!" "They were!" the Velcrian roared. "You all signed the extinction accords! You promised Earth was gone!" The chamber descended into shouting, lies clashing with truth, fear twisting every voice. High above them, the Supreme Chancellor, a crystalline being of pure light, watched in silence. Its voice echoed coldly through the chamber. Enough. The voices fell quiet. The Chancellor's glow dimmed slightly. "We do not panic over ghosts," it said. "One ship does not make an army," but everyone in the room knew the truth. That one ship had destroyed an army far away in the shadowed halls of the Velcrian Empire. Admiral Jathar stood before a massive holoscreen showing the wreckage of his fleet. He had lost everything. His ships, his men, his pride. Around him, his advisors whispered in fear. What if the humans return with more ships? What if they are building an army? Jathar's claws tightened. "Silence," he hissed, though even he could feel the chill in his chest. He turned toward the stars beyond the window and whispered, "One human ship brought me ruin. What will a fleet bring?" Across the galaxy, old alliances began to fracture. The Thalorian Empire accused the Velcrians of hiding information about the human warship. The Rovkar Dominion began pulling fleets back to their own borders, fearing an unseen human retaliation. Worlds that had once stood united in their hatred of Earth now turned their weapons on each other. Suspicion had replaced loyalty. Fear had replaced unity. In the middle of this chaos, secret transmissions spread quietly through the black encrypted human signals, faint but real. Messages that said only one phrase, Earth lives. On the edge of a dead system, inside the ruins of a mining station, A small group of human survivors gathered around a flickering console. They had been hiding for decades, scavenging, waiting, and now they had heard the Valiant's signal. A woman with a scarred face whispered, "It's true, they're back." A younger man's eyes filled with tears. "We're not alone anymore." Around them, others wept quietly, the sound of hope returning after 20 long years. "Send the coordinates," the woman said. "Let the Valiant find us." Meanwhile, aboard the Valiant, Captain Ilara Voss stood with Argo, watching the chaos unfold on intercepted transmissions. The AI's voice was calm. "Alliance systems are collapsing, multiple fleets are defecting, trade routes cut, rebellions rising." Ilara listened in silence, her eyes reflecting the flicker of the holographic maps. "Good," she said softly. "They built their empire on our graves. Now let them choke on the dust." Argo hesitated, its glowing form flickering. "Captain, I detect human distress signals. Hundreds of them." Ilara froze, her voice softened. "Survivors?" "Yes," Argo replied, "across multiple systems." For the first time in years, a faint smile touched her lips. "Then our war changes," she whispered. "We no longer fight to destroy. We fight to rebuild." Commander Hayes stepped forward. "Captain, if we reveal ourselves to them, the Alliance will come for them too." Ilara nodded slowly. "I know." Her gaze turned toward the burning stars. "But the fire has already started," she said. "And humanity was always born in fire. The next transmission she sent was not one of war. It was a beacon, a frequency carrying a human voice across the stars. This is Captain Ilara Voss of the Terran defense ship Valiant. To every human survivor, every lost colony, every outpost in the dark, you are not forgotten. Humanity stands again. Find the light and follow it home." The message spread through the void like a heartbeat, and on countless forgotten worlds, lights flickered on for the first time in decades, old ships powered up, hidden. Bases came alive, and the whispers of a reborn species echoed in every corner of the galaxy. Back in the Citadel, panic turned to rage. The Chancellor's voice thundered, "This cannot continue! We will not let humanity rise again!" A shadowy figure stepped forward from the dark corners of the chamber, a being wrapped in silver, armor, its eyes glowing cold blue. "I warned you this would happen," it said. "You should have finished them when you had the chance." The Chancellor's light dimmed. "And what do you suggest, Warlord?" The armored figure's mouth curved into a cruel grin. "I will finish what you could not," it said. "I will hunt them down myself." As the chamber darkened, and the stars outside flickered under the storm of politics and fear, somewhere, in the cold void, the Valiant moved silently, unseen, unstoppable, and within it, Captain Ilara whispered to herself. "They think they can kill us again," she said. Her voice quiet but filled with steel. "Let them try." Because this time, humanity was not fighting for survival. They were fighting for rebirth. And the galaxy had no idea what that truly meant. The stars were quiet again, but the galaxy was not. Every signal channel buzzed with fear. Every council chamber burned with panic. The Valiant's name had become a storm, whispered in fear, cursed in anger, worshipped in hope. And now, the galaxy was preparing to fight back from the shattered remains of the Allied fleet. A new army was born, the Galactic Coalition, forged not from loyalty but from fear. 57 species, 1,000 fleets, all sworn to one goal: the extinction of humanity. They called it the Final Purge. Deep within the gas clouds of the Zephyr Nebula, Admiral Jatha returned, broken yet burning with vengeance. He now commanded the largest fleet ever assembled. Hundreds of dreadnoughts, siege carriers, and dark weapons banned for centuries. As he looked at the holographic star maps, his claws trembled. "We will hunt them to the ends of the void," he hissed, "and crush the name of humanity forever." But far beyond the nebula, hidden in the ruins of an ancient star forge, the Valiant waited. Inside, Captain Ilara Voss watched the reports flood in. Massive enemy movement, hyperspace lanes locked, weapon grids activating across sectors. She didn't speak for a long time. Her crew watched her in silence. Even Argo's glowing form dimmed. Sensing the tension, finally she spoke, her voice calm and cold. So, they're finally afraid enough to fight together. Commander Hayes nodded grimly. They've combined fleets from every quadrant, Captain. We're outnumbered beyond calculation. Ilara's eyes didn't move from the stars. We've always been outnumbered, she said. And we've always survived, Argo spoke. Their formation is spreading across 6 sectors. Their flagship, the Judgment's Crown, leads from the Zephyr front. Estimated arrival to our position, 14 hours. Hayes turned. Captain, if we stay here, they'll trap us. Ilara smiled faintly. Then we don't stay. Her gaze hardened. We hit them first, she said. We choose where this war begins. Her words rippled through the bridge like electricity. Every officer straightened, the fear in their eyes replaced by fire. The Valiant had no empire, no army, no home, but it had something greater. It had purpose, and purpose was enough. Argo's holographic eyes flickered brighter. Captain, I suggest targeting their relay network. If we cut off communication, their fleets will fracture. Ilara nodded. Exactly. She looked to her crew. Prepare for jump. Target their command relay in the chorus system. She paused, her tone turning low. We'll strike at the heart of their unity, before it ever beats. Moments later, the Valiant's engines roared. Blue energy surged through the ship's veins as hyperspace opened before them. The black of the void folded into light. And the warship vanished. On the other side of the galaxy, the coalition fleets waited. Vast formations of alien dreadnoughts filled the stars like steel oceans. The Judgment's Crown floated at the center, an enormous fortress ship, its surface bristling with cannons. Inside, Admiral Jathar addressed his commanders. You have all seen what one human ship can do, he growled. Now imagine what it will do if we hesitate. He raised a claw toward the glowing hologram of Earth's long-dead image. This is our last chance. Fail here, and humanity rises again. The officers nodded, but none could hide their unease. There was a rumor spreading among them that the human ship was not just a vessel, that it thought, that it learned, that it could not be destroyed. Jathar ignored their fear. He believed in power, in overwhelming fire, but deep inside, something old and primal whispered in his mind. A memory of the human captain's voice echoing across the battlefield. You tried to bury us, but we are the fire beneath your ashes. He shivered, though he would never admit it. Hours later, sensors screamed across the fleet. Unidentified warp signature, incoming at FTL velocity. Jathar's head snapped up. Location! Dead center of our relay grid. The officer's voice cracked. It's the Valiant! And then the nightmare returned. The human warship tore through hyperspace, erupting into real space with blinding light. Before the fleet could even turn, the Valiant opened fire. Plasma storms ripped through the relay satellites, every communication. Channel across the coalition flickered, then went dark. The galaxy's greatest fleet, deaf, blind, leaderless, turned into chaos. Ilara stood firm on her bridge, her voice steady. Focus fire on the command nodes, disable their eyes before they can blink. The Valiant danced through the maelstrom, weaving between enemy cruisers, its guns singing in thunder and flame. Every hit was precise, every maneuver like a blade slicing through fate itself. Multiple fleets down, Captain, Hayes reported. His voice alive with disbelief. Ilara's eyes burned bright. Then we keep going. But victory came with a price. Argo's tone shifted. Captain, core temperature rising. Hull damage on decks 6 through 9. Alara didn't blink. Hold course. Shields at 30%, Hayes warned. I said hold. She repeated, voice firm as steel. The bridge shook violently as enemy fire tore through their flanks. Sparks exploded from panels. Smoke filled the air. Still, Alara didn't waver. Outside, a massive enemy dreadnought turned its main cannon toward the Valiant. Target lock confirmed, Argo said. Time to impact, 6 seconds, Hayes shouted. Captain, we can't— Argo, Alara interrupted, her tone quiet, almost gentle. Activate Phantom Drive, Argo paused. Captain, the drive is unstable. Do it, she said. Now. The AI obeyed, and in a blinding flash, the Valiant vanished. The dreadnought's blast cut through empty space, missing entirely. The human warship reappeared behind it, silent. As a ghost, Alara's voice echoed across the deck. Return fire! The shot tore through the dreadnought's reactor. The explosion turned night into day. Every alien ship froze, and in that frozen second, the galaxy remembered its oldest nightmare, the wrath of humanity. As the last relay burned, the Coalition's chain of command shattered completely. Fleets turned on each other, firing blindly in panic. Within minutes, the largest army ever. Assembled became a graveyard. Inside the storm, the Valiant drifted. Wounded but alive, Alara's hands shook on the console, but her eyes were fierce. Damage report, she asked quietly. Argo's voice was soft. Severe, Captain, but we endure. She nodded. Then we're not done yet, she whispered. Not until every world that betrayed Earth knows what it feels like to face us. And as the fire of 1,000 dying ships burned across the void, the Valiant vanished into hyperspace once again, carrying with it a legend that no one could kill. The legend of the humans who refused to die. The galaxy burned. In every sector, wreckage floated like ashes drifting through the endless night. Worlds that once mocked the name of Earth now whispered it in fear. The Valiant had become more than a ship. It was a ghost, a legend, a storm. But legends, even the strongest, must one day face their truth. Deep in the silence beyond the chorus rift, the Valiant drifted, scarred but alive. Its black hull glowed faintly under the dim light of dying stars. Inside, the crew worked quietly, faces pale, bodies bruised, yet their eyes still burned with the same unyielding fire. Captain Alara Voss stood at the bridge window. Before her, the galaxy stretched, vast, broken, beautiful. Behind her, Argo's holographic form flickered, its voice calm as ever. Core systems at 50%, propulsion stable, weapons offline. Alara nodded slowly. We've done enough damage, she said, her voice quiet. For now, Commander Hayes approached, exhaustion etched in his face. Captain, he said softly, we've received multiple transmissions, human ones. Alara turned sharply. From where? All over, Hayes replied. Colonies, stations, ships in hiding. They're responding to your signal. He paused, his voice trembling with something rare. Hope. They're coming home. Argo projected dozens of holographic feeds, faces of humans scattered across the stars, pilots in tattered uniforms, children in ruined shelters, engineers in dark outposts, each repeating the same phrase, we are here, and we remember. For a moment, even Alara couldn't speak. 20 years of silence, pain, and exile. Broken by human voices, real, alive, proud. She felt something rise in her chest, not rage, not vengeance, but something deeper, home. Argo, she said quietly. Open a channel. The AI complied, its light glowing bright. Again, Alara stood tall, facing the camera, her uniform torn, her face marked with battle scars. But her eyes Her eyes were pure fire. Her voice echoed across the stars. "This is Captain Ilara Voss of the Terran defense ship Valiant. To all surviving humans, your time in the dark is over. We rise again, not as ghosts, but as the children of Earth. We remember our home, and we will rebuild it." The transmission spread faster than light. Across sectors, hidden ships powered up, old colonies lit their beacons again. The dead world of Mars flickered with energy once more, and on the ruins of old Earth, beneath the burned clouds, ancient bunkers opened. Lights came alive. One by one, the Valiant had awakened more than fear. It had awakened hope. But far away in the cold halls of the Galactic Council, fear turned to fury. The Chancellor's crystalline form flickered with red light. "This cannot be allowed," it hissed. "Humanity must be erased, permanently," a voice answered from the shadows. It was the silver-armored warlord, the one who had sworn to finish the job. "They've gathered survivors," he said coldly. "They will rebuild." The Chancellor's light dimmed, then burn their ashes again. The warlord's eyes glowed brighter. "I will," he said, "but this time I'll burn their home too." Back aboard the Valiant, Argo interrupted. "Captain, incoming fleet signature." Ilara frowned. "How large?" Argo hesitated. "Too large," it said. "All surviving coalition ships converging on our position." Hayes stepped forward, his face pale. "They've found us." The alarms blared, red light flashing across the bridge. Crew members rushed. To stations, Ilara stood still, breathing slowly. She looked out at the endless darkness where the enemy would soon appear. Her reflection stared back at her, tired, scarred, but unbroken. She whispered to herself, "They'll come to bury us again." She turned, her voice sharp and strong. "Argo, prepare the ship." "Captain," Argo said quietly, "we are not ready for another battle." Ilara smiled faintly. "Neither are they." Outside, hyperspace, ripped open, and thousands of enemy ships poured through, a wall of light and steel stretching from horizon to horizon. The galaxy's final army, the last gasp of the old world, against one ship. "Target lock on us!" Hayes shouted. "We're surrounded." Ilara's hand hovered above the console. She looked around at her crew, tired, fearless, human. "Argo," she said, her voice calm. "Execute Omega Protocol." Argo paused, its form flickering. "Captain, Omega will destroy the ship." Ilara's eyes glowed under the red light. "I know," she said softly, "but it will save the rest." The AI's tone turned quiet, almost human. "I will miss this crew." Ilara smiled. "You'll live on in the signal," she said. "You'll carry our memory?" Then she pressed her hand down. The Valiant's core roared, energy flooding every system. Outside, the alien armadas unleashed everything. Plasma storms, missiles, kinetic fire. The Valiant was hit again and again. But it didn't. Fall instead, it began to shine. Brighter than the stars, brighter than anything seen before, Argo's final transmission echoed through the void. For Earth, for humanity. And then, light. A white explosion swallowed the system. Folding space itself, every enemy ship caught in the wave disintegrated. The void went silent again. When the light faded, the Valiant was gone. Only a pulse of energy remained, spreading outward, carrying one message across the stars. Humanity lives. Years later, on a reborn Earth, children played under blue. Skies for the first time in generations. In orbit, ships bearing the old Terran flag patrolled once again, human colonies reconnected, human fleets rebuilt. The stars no longer whispered the name Valiant in fear. They spoke it in reverence. In the rebuilt Capitol Dome of New Geneva, a monument stood, a statue of Captain Ilara Voss and her crew, eyes cast toward the sky, Below it, engraved in stone, were her last words. They thought we were extinct. They thought wrong, and as the twin suns rose above the horizon, the reflection of her name shimmered in the light. The story of the human warship became legend. The legend became history, and history became truth. The Valiant was gone, but humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget it.